And we're going to do some movements where you step forward and onto the bench, touch, back to the floor. Other leg, forward, touch the bench, back to the floor. A front and touch, back to the floor. A front and touch, back to the floor. Front, touch, back to the floor. Kind of a flow. And then we might change it to some other things we've done before, but they require a little more balance. A step, lift, back to the floor. A step, lift, back to the floor. Step and lift, back to the floor, and a step, lift, back to the floor. And the last thing in this position, let's try a mule kick, which is a straight leg kick to the back. So a step, a mule kick, and back to the floor. Step, a mule kick, back to the floor. So it's a similar thing, just that leg doing an extra movement, mule kick, back to the floor. And take a breath in, a breath out. Before we go to the bench, here's a little fun thing to try, bringing the hands up. We'll try one knee lift and elbow toward the knee, and then the other side, a knee lift, elbow over. Just thinking of that being on one leg, but really strengthening in the hip and the abdomen with that kind of a crunching movement forward, trying to touch that elbow to the knee. And then we can just bring the hands out, a breath in and a breath out. And then if you have a bench, I'm just going to bring it right over here and next to your chair. And we'll repeat that. So if you don't have a bench, you're doing just like we did before. But if you have a bench, what we want to do is you want to bring your whole flat foot onto the bench. So not on the edge, but right on the bench. We'll step up, we'll give a touch, and then back to the floor, and then back to the floor. And then we'll step up with the other leg, a step, chair's there, use it if you need it, touch, back to the floor. And a step, touch, back to the floor, a step, touch, back to the floor. So kind of introducing an uneven surface to walk on, just a little bit more challenge for coordination and balance. Let's take a breath in. Also makes it more aerobic because every step you're also lifting your full body weight. Let's vary that a little. We'll do a step. Remember to have your chair there, a knee lift, and then back to the floor and down, other leg, step, knee lift, back to the floor. And so that foot going first is very important, right on the bench, the full foot, lift, back and down, and a step, lift, back and down, and a breath in, and a breath out. And then this one is a little trickier, the kick to the back. So try having a light touch on the chair right at first, flat foot, mule kick, back and down, a step, that mule kick, back and down. We'll do a couple more, step, a mule kick, back and down, and up, a mule kick, back and down. A breath in, a breath out. And then we're going to turn this 90 degrees. And we're going to bring the chair, if you have it, right in front. So with or without a bench, you're standing right behind the chair. And I'm going to move my chair so you can see my feet. But what we're going to do is you would have your chair in front of you. You're going to stand on the bench with both feet. And we're going to try some side-to-side movement. And that just works on the hips in a different way. The benches are also strongly recommended for bone density of the hips because of that stepping up and down is very good for bone density. So we're going to start the sideways one. We're going to step and then back on the bench and together. Side, bench, together. A side, bench, together. A side, bench, together. Now, same basic move, side, how about a little more of a lift, and back to the bench, together, side, lift, back, together, side, lift, back, together. Let's take a breath in, a breath out, standing on the bench. And let's step off to one side of the bench and we'll do side lunges. Side lunges are valuable no matter what. So, but we're just gonna use the bench as something to step over. So your chair's there in case you might need it, but we're gonna step over the bench and off to the side, doing a side lunge. And then we are going to step back. So practicing that kind of movement where you're stepping over something instead of pretending, but in actuality. Seat back, chest forward, and then we'll come back together. We'll step over and back, getting those side lunges that are so important for bone density. This time we're going to stay on that side. So we'll step over and make sure you have room for your other foot to come over. So I'm going to take a bit wider lunge because I'm going to lift this foot over to this side. And now I'm going to do some lunges back and forth the other direction. Give my body the chance to practice that. If you've scooted back, you might want to scoot forward just so your chair's close by. And let's come over and do that side lunge. It's much more work for the hip muscles and then more focus on bone density if you really keep the back flat, but stick the seat back and the chest forward. And we'll come back and over and back and over and seat out, chest forward, over and back. And then we're going to try this to the other side where we take a fairly good sized lunge over, make room for your foot, other foot right here, and we'll bring this foot over like that. And then a breath in and a breath out.